loving and accepting my body. So I wanted to start with this slide from last week when Stephen Porges was talking about our nervous system and being able to witness and remain present while we feel vulnerable offers a portal of optimistic outcome. I love the way he says that. This is our nervous system, and we need to be able to be vulnerable in order to really be connected and feel satisfied in life. And he talks about moving in and out of different states. And we have many, many ways that we can downregulate or come back into self regulation in our nervous system. And so it's good to remember that it's not a problem that we're going into fight, flight, freeze. The problem is if we can't come back. And so as we do our healing work around this, we have more openness, we have more awareness when we're starting to go into something. We understand it better. We understand that when we have some kind of a reactivity, that we're going to have a reaction to that. So we have the understanding that helps us not to worry about what's going on in our nervous system, but we also know how to bring ourselves back. So I just wanted to start that, what we're looking at today with that, because I think it's really important to not try and get into like a controlled kind of state with this, to let ourselves go where we're going, and to use slow exhalations if we're starting to get wound up, and to maybe do some fuller inhalations if we notice that we're in freeze. We can hold our own hand. We can stop what we're doing, do some tapping on our forehead. We can look around, orient ourselves to the room. So always to remain aware that when things are starting to get too intense, we have ways to bring ourselves back. So this slide, I was just kind of thinking yesterday when I was preparing for this, what are some of the components of trust and connection? And then I included happiness in there too, because I think that's really part of it. So some of them are physical, like we learn how to breathe, diaphragmatic, smooth, even breath. We work with the inner critic, so we become more friendly towards ourselves. We start to know how to work with our thoughts. So if we're going into catastrophic thinking, we can bring ourselves back. And in terms of the regulated nervous system, part of it is understanding our nervous system and recognizing when we're starting to move into these states. But some of it too is kind of these deep internal changes that happen. One of them is when we have a strong fear response going on, and that can be something that's happened over many decades, that most of the time we're really kind of absorbed in some kind of anxiety or catastrophic thinking or a felt sense of fear. And it prevents us from really being present in the moment. And then we'll do, sometimes when we're doing the daily practices, we'll do a direct experience practice of what are my sense perceptions right now telling us about what's going on in my body. So I can feel my feet on the floor. I can feel the air flowing through my nose. I can feel, so we go into more of a direct experience. And a lot of our work in healing is how are we going to find a way to be connected with ourselves, because the effect of trauma is disconnection. And when we have a nervous system that's still very much in the grip of that, I need to protect myself, my shields are up, then how can we come into that, trusting connection with ourselves? Kindness is certainly a big part of it. Not being too engaged to outcomes, or developing or cultivating that trust in ourselves that we can be present and be mindful and know how to work with this, whatever it is. And one of the big foundations is to know and love my body and to know and love myself. So these are just some of the components that I think come into this whole relationship around trust and connection and the relationship that we have with ourselves. So we're going to work with the body part today. So if you just close your eyes for a moment and listen to the words, I know and love my body. I know and love my body. So, one of the first things that most people would notice is that there's a rejection of that. That's actually not true. Or there might be well, I'm okay with these things, but really not those things. So, we're going to take a few minutes here to really kind of sense into what's holding you back from loving your body and loving yourself. So, those are kind of two a little bit different nuances. So, I love my body is a little bit different than I love myself. So, let yourself go wherever you're going with this. Doesn't There's not a really right or wrong way to do this. Notice what you feel like in your body as we're just looking at this slide, hearing these words. So, the way that this relationship with ourselves developed was a lot of it happened in childhood. And at that time, until we're kind of in our late 20s, our brain's not even fully developed, but also children don't have much control or power over their circumstances. So we tend to have a lot of powerlessness and no agency. And a lot of the habits and the beliefs that we develop as children continue into our adult lives. So the truth is that we've had difficult experiences around our body. We might have experienced betrayal from somebody else, or we might feel like we've betrayed our body. We might have been shamed, and that might be for something we did, like sexual activity. It might be something we looked like an injury to your hand, like we were talking about, or having a body that's not the size that we want it to be. So we all have a lot of experiences, and a lot of them are very difficult. The experiences that we've had with our body. So let yourself just kind of acknowledge that. See what comes up when you hear that. We've had difficult experiences of being betrayed or shamed. Things have gone not well. We've had a hard time with this. We're not really going directly into the experiences themselves right now. So if you find that you're being kind of dragged into something, bring yourself back, open your eyes. You could do some tapping on your forehead, take your attention into the sound and sensation of your fingers on your forehead. You could open your eyes and put an image on the wall across the room, whatever it is that would help you to remember that you're here right now. Hold your own hand. Yes, it's true that I've had difficult experiences with my body. And then the next part of that is, of course, this is how it works. We form beliefs about ourselves based on those experiences. So we know that if we're treated with kindness and compassion, and I love my body at any size, I like what my body can do. That's not most of our experience as a child. But we would have a very different outlook and relationship with our body than if we were shamed, or if we felt like I was too fat, or I was too freckled, or my skin color maybe generated some kind of trauma for me in the form of bullying or ostracizing. So we know that these beliefs form in response to our experience. That's how our body, how our mind, our primitive brain, how that all works. And so the way we heal is to let those go. So I think for me, it's important to really understand and acknowledge the experiences and the beliefs. And as we move into the inquiry on the next slide, I can let them go now. They don't define me now. And that may feel very untrue. And I think this is like many things, it's a continuum. We have a certain amount of experience with things, and we're part way healed on it, and we still get tugged back into it at times. Let's move to the next slide about inquiry. So the way I have this kind of set up is if you were to imagine over on the left side of you, and it can be however you imagine, it doesn't have to be that way. But here's our conditioned beliefs. So these are the beliefs that we form based on our experience. And our experience includes personal experience as well as conditioning from our culture. So it's all of those hundreds of thousands of messages that we've received that only a thin body is acceptable in our culture, or only this or only that. So we have all of these personal experiences and then the cultural conditioning. And then we have, on the other hand, we have freedom, the possibility of freedom. One of the ways that that works with the body is that we have a relationship with our body. We have this freedom to love ourselves and to trust our bodies. And that, even just saying, I trust my body, there's a lot there. So what do I mean by that? Do I trust that my body will always be healthy? That's actually not the way our bodies work. Do I trust that my body is trying to do its best? Well, maybe I could. And then the freedom part too is to get rid of the shame and the deficiency beliefs about my body. So however you want to kind of conceptualize that, that's how we're working. We're working with the conditioning and the beliefs that we formed from our culture and from our personal experience. And some of those conditioned beliefs, I'm not safe, I'm not the right size, I'm disgusting, my body will betray me, people hurt me, people hurt my body. And there's many, many, many more. So as we're starting into this inquiry, you might want to sit with that. What are the big things that come up when you're looking into what's my conditioning around my body? Let's take a moment to do that. What are the most powerful beliefs that you have about your body? And remembering to stay grounded at this moment in time. So we're not back in the past having that experience that led to the belief. We're present right now in this moment. And we can come back. We can come back into regulation if we notice that we're starting to get too intensely involved in something. That we look around the room, we pat our body, we recognize that we're here. And then let's look at the inquiry part. So base it on what you feel is holding you back from freedom. So there's a couple of examples. I love and accept my body just as it is. Past experiences are no longer in the way of loving my body now. And that again is that continuum. That might feel a bit true, maybe not. But when we say that as though we believe it, past experiences are no longer in the way of loving my body now. And then we just listen and see what comes up. Because our thoughts will bring something up that says, no, that's not true, and this is why. So this is one of the ways that we kind of move into this. And then on a little bit of a different thread, I know 100% that my body wants the best for me. So if part of what's holding you back from freedom is this feeling that my body is against me, or it's not fair that my body is not working, or something like that, that might be an interesting one to work with. So we'll take 5-6 minutes, something like that, a generous amount of time. And just try to stay really mindful in your body. Notice what's happening in your nervous system. Use your breath, your tools. What's in the way of freedom? A lot of what we're looking at here is our relationship with what's going on. So if we can see that we don't really feel all that certain that our body's on our side, then we could look into, well, why is that? Or what would it be like if I felt that way, that was true? Or we might be looking at past experiences are not in the way, but we know that they are. And so we could look at one or two of them and just kind of see, well, how is it that that's still affecting me? Is it a belief? Is it something my nervous system says, no, you can't trust that? And to stay really present in your body, notice the energy in your body. So we're not trying to think about it in our mind, we're more listening in our body. Maintain this awareness of your body, of your breath. Stay oriented in the room. You still have a minute or so. Let yourself kind of settle into the inquiry a little bit longer. And notice if there's anything that you'd like to follow up on. You could make a note or a mental note. Sometimes it's the resistance that gives us a good place to keep going from. What I've noticed is that when we have beliefs about ourselves that are based on our experiences, that it's good to know the connection between those two. So if I have this experience, I have this belief. Is that necessary? Like, what's the usefulness of it? The utility of it can be helpful to look at too. And there's so often that in our culture we shame ourselves as a way to try to make things better. And in fact, shaming always shuts us down and makes it worse. So that could be a part of the inquiry going forward is there shame here? Am I feeling aggressive towards myself or towards my body? Impatient, frustrated? And how could I let that go? How could I see it and then work with that in a healthier way, in a more connected relationship? So there's a lot here. We're not going to get to it all in this one inquiry. See what it is that you'd like to carry forward, that you'd like to keep looking at.